Okay, very good morning, dear brothers and sisters in Christ. My name is Errol from Catholic Business Network. I hope you can hear me clearly. Today we have our next My Journey series featuring Paul V, who is the Vice President FinTech of the Property Guru Group. So Paul will talk more about himself later. And so now over to you, Paul.
Hi, guys. Okay, thank you for opening up the everything Errol. Now, brothers and sisters, this is just a sharing that I'm giving. So basically, what I would like to have is just to have a conversation. This is not a presentation. I'm by no means a role model. I just wanted to be clear about that. So let's have this conversation. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and along the way we can talk about this. So if we can just go to the next one. So basically the question is, who is Paul, right? I think that's a question I ask myself all the time. Who am I? To the next one, Errol. So basically, this is a very bad shot of OLPS. So what am I doing in OLPS? I'm involved in the praise and worship team that originated out of having to support the first parish-based CER. So I play the acoustic guitar, and I'm in this group. I also, out of church, write for this reflection series called the Oxygen Reflections. The website is called God is My Oxygen. So basically, it's lay people writing and reflecting on the daily readings and gospels. It's a wonderful process that I go through time and again. When I write, I reflect about how or what role God plays in my life, right? So this is essentially what goes on. I was a catechist for a good number of years, but I'm no longer a catechist owing to work commitments and so on and so forth, right? Next one. So the personal front, you see this handsome, cute little baby, right? That was me, right? That is me. And I thought this picture really illustrates the essence of who I was or who I am. When I was born out of wedlock. My parents were 21 when they had me. They married, I think, the next month after I was born. I always joke that it's a good thing I look like my father. But during that time, it's born out of wedlock apparently was not very common. My parents divorced when I was about 5. So, if you look at the crowd around me, people were fussing over me and really taking very good care of me, but I actually felt very alone because I grew up separate from my parents all the way, yeah. So my parents actually never took care of me. So I lived with my grandauntie who was on the right of the picture. I got a lot of love, but essentially all this loneliness and all that I felt very with your parents not around, I felt very unloved in a certain way, not loved enough to be cared for by your parents, to not have your parents in your life, right? So the other thing is, right now I'm a father of 2. I have a 22-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy, and married for the last 25 years to a wonderful woman, So I always say, first part of my life was tougher than my second part. I'm very, very blessed. Okay, let's talk about my faith journey. Let's go to the next slide. So basically, I can tell you this. One word can summarize what my faith journey has been. And the punchline is, Errol, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. I think I may have given the wrong slide, but essentially my faith journey has been that of silence. Okay. Why silence? I mean, basically, I started out going to church, going to a Protestant church. Why did I go? I went with a neighbor, and the neighbor told me it would be fun, right? So I thought I could meet new friends and spend time with people, because essentially most of my time was spent alone. My grandauntie could not speak English. Therefore, we couldn't really socialize with the neighbors. I only spoke in Hokkien when I was primary school. Kindergarten. Almost got kicked out of primary school or kindergarten because I couldn't speak English very well. So I thought it was a good opportunity to meet friends and all that, but something was very interesting. When I went to the church, when people pray, they really seem to be very deep in thought and deep in conversation with somebody, eyes closed. My mind will be wondering, I say, am I supposed to hear something, or is somebody supposed to talk to me, right? Now, the thing is, that journey, right, was followed me essentially all my life. So I actually even when I became a Catholic, I always prayed, and I went to talk to Father Anthony of Blessed Sacrament, and I said, you know, Father, I there's silence in my life, right? When I pray, I don't hear anything. He said, then it's quite normal. Mother Teresa, right, for 20 over years, experienced a type of spiritual dryness. And I felt comforted by that. You know, for many years, I thought that was the way it should be. Until I attended the CR, right? And then the experience is very different. Now I hear God quite often in different ways, not the way I expected it to be, quite different, right? So that is very interesting to me. And for those of you who haven't gone for CR, I encourage you, please go. So basically, that's how I started, right? Going out for fellowship and things like that. Really, most of my journey until maybe about 5-6 years ago was met with spiritual dryness. Yeah, I felt like a fraud. I mean, many times you go to church, even as a catechist, right? Yeah, I just felt like, you know, here I'm talking about God experience, but essentially I felt nothing until I went to CR, like I said. So let me talk about my God experiences next. Ironically, I had experienced God along the way. Sometimes I end up asking myself questions. Is it really God? And funnily enough, the first time I experienced God, you know, Jesus went to the Joseph and Mary went to the stables, right? I think that was the most unglam. You know, my first time I actually thought I heard God, I was in the toilet. So I was in a friend's office, right? And I was feeling quite kind of depressed about work and stuff. And so I went to a loo. It's a huge loo, you know, very nice. And I was sitting there pondering and, you know, just reflecting. Also, I heard a voice, and the voice came out from a corner of the toilet. It was very funny. And only words I heard is, "Hey, don't be afraid, lah." Okay. And that is a very consistent theme in whatever I see. Do not be afraid. Whatever I hear or experience God, it's always in the words of "do not be afraid." Now, the next time which was significant was in Janda Bai, which is a retreat. Oh, good question. It was, I don't know, you know, I can't answer that because I heard it clear as day. It was, I felt as though it was a audible voice, but you know, I can't be sure. But the next experience I had was in Janda Bai, which is a Jesuit retreat house, right, called Maranatha. And you know, I had been very, very exhausted going to that retreat. Every time the priest says, "Okay, let's break," right, for prayer, right, I'll fall asleep. And funnily enough, as a good Catholic, I felt very guilty, lah. and but you know, it came to me, you know, that just in the sense that God wanted me to rest. And when I gave up my resistance to it, I really rested very well. On the second day of the retreat, I found myself becoming very open. You know, I no longer felt very sleepy. You know, I felt many things. You know, it was a wonderful retreat. But what caught me off guard is this. You know, in the Jesuit way of praying, right, Ignatian method, there's something known as Lectio Divina. Right? Basically, you read a Bible passage and then you visualize yourself. And I visualize myself being in a field, right, with Jesus, and where he was preaching, right, and he was talking. And so the plan was this, right? You're supposed to read, and then you imagine yourself there, then you hear Jesus talking and all these things, right? And Jesus actually spoke with me. He was talking, you know, supposed to be the verses in the Bible. All of a sudden, he turned and he talked to me. He said, "Why are you afraid?" And I remember feeling very stunned, right? Because if my conscious brain was going, "Hey, this is not supposed to happen. I'm just going through this, what is happening, right?" So Jesus asked me, "Hey, why are you so afraid? Why are you so nervous? Why are you so anxious about your work? Specifically, he addressed my work. And at that point in time, I wasn't aware I was of anything else. I didn't feel that I was nervous or uncomfortable about my work. But I heard him talking to me, right? Jesus, said, "Yeah, so why are you afraid?" So I had this conversation with him for a good, at least 5-10 minutes, where he says, look, and then he went back to script, huh? Then he said, look at the birds, and all that. He said, but seriously, why are you afraid about your work? I've been always there for you. I've been watching over you. Why are you afraid? And that was the first time I really felt the presence of God. And really, this was, I told you there was a lot of silence, right? This was one period, one experience which was very loud, and I felt the presence of God, right? It was something that was very, very very touching. When I talk about it today and I think about it, I remember the experience. I feel very loved, right? And when I went back, I reflected about what Jesus had talked to me about. I realized it was only then I realized that I had been harboring those thoughts and feelings and things like that, right? And when I prayed, I realized that, there were some things that I needed to do. And when I went back to the office, I asked to be transferred to a different position. And, my career came up a different way. Simply because of that conversation with Jesus. I can't explain it. It was very different. Now, another significant one experience we had with God, my wife and I, was this. I think in 2019, what happened was that my daughter wanted to apply for university, right? To apply for university in Melbourne. So she did that, right? She applied for university, and the plan was for her to wait until 2020 and then go. Now, at that point in time, I had been self-employed. I had left banking in a few years before because I didn't particularly enjoy the work I was doing. I felt that also in terms of values and the work I do, there was a misalignment, and I wanted some time to do my own stuff and all those things. So I was self-employed, and so was my wife. My wife had left banking, HR specifically, to started to be a coach and stuff. So both of us were self-employed. And when you have a child who wants to go overseas, all of a sudden you think, wow, there's a lot of money involved. And the plan was to work hard and save money and, raise funds. Not that we didn't have money. I mean, we just had to work harder to raise it. And my daughter came to us one day and said, "Dad, Mom, can I have a chat with you?" I thought, die. So we sat down and we had this chat and we talked about it. And she said, I know the plan is for me to go next year. I really want to go this year. She's somebody who thinks a lot, and to have her come out and actually say that, vocalize it, meant that she really thought about it. Now, when she said she wanted to go in 2019, what she actually meant was, I want to be in Melbourne in 3 weeks' time. So in 3 weeks' time, we had to raise funds, we had to do a lot of things, right? And I would say, I won't be exaggerating if I tell you that I couldn't sleep for quite a lot of nights. And there was one particular night I was lying in bed, and I'm somebody who internalize pressure, stress, and all that. I handle stress quite well. But that particular night I was lying in bed, and really I felt very overwhelmed. It really was a very dark night for me. And I remember it was 1 something in the morning, and I told my wife, I mentioned to my wife, just in the dark, I said, "Are you awake?" And she said, "Yeah, I was," right? She said, "Yeah, I'm awake." So both of us woke up, set up, we turned on the lights and we talked about it, and we said, "So I'm really afraid, I don't know what to do." And so we prayed, right? Like, "Lord, we lift everything up to you. Now, I don't know what this means. I don't know what is the solution. Does it mean that you give me money, or what is the solution? I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know how." And really, I realized at that point in time, or realized after that a lot of times when I pray and ask for things, right, or place in the Lord's hands, very often it's like going to the ATM to draw cash. You know, Lord, please give me $200 or $1,000. Specifically, we know what we think we want or we think is needed for us, but that particular night was different. Basically, I said, Lord, just take whatever it is, whatever it means that is your will, please take it, and I leave everything to you. So the miracle is this, right? Within 2 weeks, right, I had a call from Property Guru, right? So where I'm working now. And Property Guru reached out to me and they said, can we have a conversation, right? So I had a conversation with them, we talked. Within 2 weeks, I had an offer on the table without them even seeing my CV. No CV. I had not been putting my name on the market. It just came to my lap. Okay. What was even more amazing was that during the same 2 weeks, my wife also got a call and asked her. They asked her, "Would you like to join us?" The same 2 weeks, after the 2 weeks where I got my offer, she also got an offer. I cannot attribute that to luck or coincidence. It can't be, And really, when I read subsequently, I told you about the reflections. Right? One day I was doing a reflection about Queen Esther, where she was praying to God, right? Like, give me the ability to convince people and do all these things, right? Her back was against the wall. And really it was out of a cry of desperation and fear, right? But we don't know what we want. We don't know what God's solution is for us. We just have to live, and that's the only rule. And that was the insight I got from that one. But to me, that was the amazing thing, right? My wife had a lot of revelations along the way, but that's her story to tell. And I had a lot more, experiences of God that changed with the CER. So essentially, that was how it was. I've been very blessed with maybe a more realization. Perhaps God had been talking to me all along, but I had been numb to it or not realized it. Right now, Errol, the next slide is very important. If you can flash that. Now, what happens if God takes away all the good things? Now, this rose out of a conversation with a friend. Now, he's barred me on all social media, strangely, after this conversation that we had. So this friend of mine had a very difficult life, in the sense that, subsequent to a lot of things happened where, a loved one was ill and taken away from him, and he had a lot of challenges in life, right? And he had become very angry, and I had seen that on Facebook, right? So I reached out and said, "Are you okay?" All right. But he got very emotional in the chatting that we got, and he asked me that question: what happens if God takes away all the good things in a traditional fashion or joke, right? What happens if all these things that I have today disappear? And I pondered this question a very, very long time. I still do, actually, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But these are the things that I think about. I have a good job, I have a good family and things like that. What happens if all these disappear? And I would say that, touching my heart, I saw where I came from. I came from a unwed family, right, where I had unwed parents, where there was nobody to take care of me, and somebody was given to me who brought me up the best she knew, or somebody who's uneducated. I worked through school, right, in secondary school and all that. I did everything, and all along, God was there for me. I already seen what God could do out of nothing. If I lost everything today, would I still have faith? The answer is yes, because He's already shown me the part He's played in my life. So that is the part that I think is good, because we can have the trap of always thinking that wow, God loves me, he gives me everything, but it doesn't equate that way. The danger is that we think that God shows his love through the things he gives us. I don't think so. I think we are blessed with the many blessings in terms of physical, material, wealth and things like that. But I think God's love is more than that. You know, our journey here on earth is what, 70 to 90 years average. It's only the tail, just the tip of where our journey will be. And our journey will be far, far longer than that. You know, material wealth over 70, 90 years doesn't show God's love. It's what is over the rest of eternity. I wanted to share this insight with you because, you know, that troubled me for a long time, and it was something that I was grappling with for a very, very long time. Yeah. So thank you. Next slide. So let's talk about faith at work. I think a lot of us now are looking at that, right? Faith at work, and how does it play in our life? So let me share with you some stories. The first one would be this. Arrow. So this is really the genesis of where my initial work ethic was, right? I had always been a troublemaker of sorts in school. You know, I'm what they say, very kiki, you know, very argumentative. I always didn't believe in rote learning. I hated it when people were memorizing stuff to go to school and all those things. I hated it when teachers showed attitude. Some teachers have got complexes, you know that. So I struggled against that for all my school life, and really, I think looking back, I would have handled my life slightly differently, but not so much because it really shaped who I am today, right? So I went to O levels, A levels, and then I did poorly. I actually did an honors year, an extra year in JC. When I went to the army, I realized I really needed to have some sort of education, some sort of certification at the point in time. So I went to the poly, and I did well in poly. Then I went to work in an audit firm, right? So at that point in time, I was going out with this lady in the firm. I was joking at Errol earlier. I said, you know, my wife will be attending this, so but she knows about this story. So essentially, this lady was a high flyer in school. So she had an honors degree and so on and so forth. So I had this chat with one of the partners whom I was very close with. And she told me, she said, Paul, you're really good. You're really fantastic at what you do, but you will never go as far as this lady. Then I said, why? You know, like, I'm good at my work, all right? Then she said, no, because you simply don't have a degree, let alone an honors degree, right? You don't have anything. And that was where the seed was planted. I'm not blaming the partner, but within me, I felt very angry. And I felt that there was a great need to prove myself, right? To always be fantastic at my work. At the same time, I also subsequently applied for a university entrance. I subsequently went to NUS at 26 to do a BBA, a BizEd degree. So I graduated and then went out to work around about 30 years old, older than my peers. And my peers were telling me when I was applying for NUS, they said, don't raise your hopes. I don't think there's any chance for you. So my friends gave me that. And so I always felt like, hey, you know, my friends felt that. My girlfriend at that point in time told me not to raise my hopes. People at work told me I'm good at my work, but don't raise your hopes. And I felt very angry, and there was a great need to prove myself. So, you know, I meandered through my career and finally ended up in banking, and which is where the source of the next saying come. Errol, I shall say this only once. Sounds like a joke, but it's real. When I joined one of the banks, what happened was that my colleague who was supposed to train me used to say this. I'm going to only say this only once, right? Don't come and ask me again if it is the same problem. If it's a new issue, you can come and ask me, but I'm only going to tell you once, right? And that was a very, very, I feel, very toxic environment, all right? I learned a lot of things, but it set in me a mindset like this. So when I train people, right, it was with a mindset of arrogance. I'm going to only say this only once, right? If you come to me, I will teach you once. If you come to me the same issue, that is your problem. In those words, I actually really use those words because that was the environment in which I was trained. I was really proud of my work, even though I was a junior banker, right? I felt that I could go very far with this attitude. I could prove myself and so on and so forth. But you know, I said I was very TT, right? That also affects my career or affected my career in the past where I didn't know how to regulate and didn't know how to, and it was a mixture of signals, right? I started this sharing by saying, who is Paul, right? That question continued to bug me a very long time. Who is Paul? What does he do? What can he do? Is he capable or is he a real person and so on and so forth? But that was the background to very much of my early career. The next one, Errol. Now in about 2001, my daughter, elder one was about 1 year old. And my wife and I joined this group called Couples for Christ, right? And Couples for Christ was this, actually came out of the Philippines. It's a family ministry that, what they say, cradle to grave. And I had been quite involved at that point in time, became what we call a cell group leader, a household leader together with my wife. But again, I shared how much of an imposter I felt because I didn't have a close relationship with God, right? But one of these things is very interesting was this guy called Brother Mello. And Brother Mello, ironically, is not somebody that I was very close to. He was one of the leaders of the community. But what struck me was that I could see him in action, right? This man was a senior person in a FMCG company, one of those fast-moving consumer goods companies, very, very experienced, very well regarded in the company, in the industry, right? But what struck me was the way he treated people. When he talks to people, and he shared, I remember he had this talk he was giving, and he was sharing about his experience at work. What struck me like a slap on the face was this, that this man had every right to be arrogant, but he wasn't. He always had kind words to talk to people, and if people are misguided, right, I noticed that he would gently guide them along the way. And this was around the time where I realized that, hey, you know, there's something wrong in my faith, right? I call myself a Christian, but at work I believe different things from how I reacted at home or when I go to church. I felt very much a hypocrite, but this was the starting, really the significant impact on me. For me to tell you this story, yeah, shows the impact. And I imagine this must have been what it was like for the early Christians when they look at each other and say, people outside the community look at the early Christians and say, wow, look at this community, they love each other and they take care of each other. I want to be like them, right? I want to be part of them, right? So to me, that was really, really powerful, right? Yeah, so Brother Mello, I know that subsequently he quit his job to do full-time work for CFC and the church, and subsequently went back. I don't know what became of him, but thank you for the gift that you've given me in how you live your life. Okay, so next one, please. Okay, now coming to the work I'm doing currently, I was during the break I had after banking. I left banking about 2014. And during that time, I had the interest to do my own stuff, right? So I started learning about technology. I learned how to build websites. I learned how to do internet marketing and search engine optimization and stuff, right? And now when I joined Property Guru, I'm actually within the fintech realm. I mean, Property Guru is a technology company. And so, you know, fintech is something that really interests me. Of course, I'm strong in the area of finance, right? Which is why I built up the Property Guru finance business for them, right? But in finance, in fintech, one of the things that is the holy grail is data, and how do you use this analytics and data to build your business, right? And it's not just a company thing. I'm not talking about Property Guru specifically, but I'm talking about our generation or our lives, right? My children were born in the age of the internet, right? They were born after the internet was created and launched, right? So I was having a conversation with them, right, about something. Both of them reached for their phones and Google, right? And it showed me the answer, like, and the look I got was, Dad, do you not know how to use Google, right? And that struck me that generationally, right, a lot of our people increasingly will become more and more technology savvy, right? Same thing like Babel, right? Or Babel. During that time where people were speaking one common language, they thought they could build a tower and a city, up to God and reach up to God, right? So much arrogance, right? But that's what we're doing today. If you parallel today, and this is my own view, when I look at it, this technology, data science and everything, right? People want to learn it because they want to be able to look at data and be more and more well informed. And that's the danger. That's our Tower of Babel, where technology, we think that we can stand on the shoulders of technology to reach God, to be equal to God. This is one of the reflections I had during the Oxygen series again. And in doing this, I've also come to realize that all this data, right, that it's not us, I mean, just like we are same body and soul, right? This what things we buy, things we Google for on the internet, is not us, because we are more than that. We are more than our data. We are more than we are more than that. And just like in the days of old, where the languages changed, right? And that's the evolution of that's how the different languages came about, right? Now we are looking at each other and say, is this information real? Is this fake data? Is this a fake website? Is this link trustable? This is something that grounds us and helps us to look at it and say, is technology really infallible? Can we be like God through technology? I mean, we don't think of it in those terms, but aren't we doing that, looking at our technology? And this is something I remind myself when I am at work every day, right? I look at this and say, how can we look at our clients, because we work with clients, right, and treat them like human beings and not as a digit? And this is the I think in every day as we grow, right, as we look at our technology, as we Google and read information, we find ourselves being judgmental, right? I mean, the recent events at the Academy Awards, right? We find ourselves judging. Yeah, a lot of things are there, right? Is it really real? Are we being arrogant? Is there intellectual humility about us? Even a spiritual humility, right? So yeah, I just saw Errol put in the point. Please put in any questions that you have. I know some of the questions I haven't answered, but we can have a chat later, and all that. But these are just thoughts that I wanted to share. Next slide, please. Now, I actually allocated some 45 minutes for this, but and then we have a Q&A after this. But I wanted to share this. If you look at the EDM, the electronic publicity for this, if you look at this, there's a quote there, right? A Bible saying, "For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." This is from Hosea 6:6. Now, there was a different translation I first read. The translation read, "For I desire mercy and not sacrifice." And I shared with you that I had been reflecting about how I was acting at work and acting in church, right? When I'm in a church context or when I'm with my friends in church versus how I treat people at work, right? Do I make people's lives difficult, right? On purpose, for example. And this is something that again caught my attention. all these burnt offerings and sacrifice, right? It's what we do in church, right? We say, well, we give you, offerings, we give money, do all these things. We pray in front of the Blessed Sacrament and all these things. To me, all of a sudden, this places into context everything that really is not so important. That how I treat people around with mercy, with love, is more important in how that I carry myself in church. I read some time ago about how after Mass there was this big fight between a warden and a churchgoer, and the churchgoer had driven into the warden because of some disagreement. And that strikes me, reminds me of my own attitudes, right? Am I like that in church I'm all holy, but the moment I step out, finish, right? So these are the things that really this verse in particular is something that I look at very regularly to remind myself to do what is right. And this mercy is not just for others. I think it's also mercy for us. I think in what we do, we are still a product of God. We are a child of God. And we need to be kind to ourselves in order to grow to perfection, right? We may make mistakes, but we forgive. We turn to, of course, we have the sacrament of reconciliation. We turn back to God. At the same time, we forgive ourselves in order to learn and move on. I think this is the biggest learning I have for myself. I hope I haven't bored you all too much in my stories, but essentially that's what I had to share for today. And the rest, I'm happy to open up for Q&A and things like that. Feel free to ask questions, and we can talk about that.
Thank you so much, Paul. Wow, that was thank you so much for that very candid sharing about of your life story. And I think you spoke of how you had such a difficult start in life, and that challenged you to really prove yourself. And you eventually accomplished success, but despite the success, you managed to stay detached from your worldly possessions and manage to maintain your humility. So I mean, I think our attendees have a lot of questions for you on how you managed to do that. So can I ask everyone to now type in your questions in the chat, and we will take them as they come in. Meanwhile, perhaps if I could just ask the first question, Paul. You talked about how early in your life you, when you went to church, what you got when you prayed was silence. But yet, despite that silence, something called you, or something happened in your life to make you want to become Christian, to want to become Catholic. Could you speak a little bit more about that part of your life? How, despite silence, you were called?
I don't think God tries to reach us through one way. I feel that, the story, you heard the story of the woman who was standing on the roof trying to get rescued. And then a man, comes by in a boat. Somebody comes by with a helicopter. Please, we're going to save you. Then the woman says, no, I'm just waiting for God to kind of pick me up and send me away. But so I feel that is the case where I had many opportunities. So for one, I was in Catholic schools all my life, even from the kindergarten, the one that almost kicked me out. Primary school, secondary school, JC. So all along there was opportunity to do that. But sometimes it's not the only reason. So I had a friend, a very good friend, who came to my house. I used to live across from Blessed Sacrament. And every time before he'll go for choir practice, he'll hang out at my place for about a couple of hours. And then after a while, he started asking, hey, why don't you come? Just come, just come, we go and sing song, have some fun. And after a while, one day I said, okay, I'll go already. And that was the starting point. Like I said, the first time I go to church was to meet girls and sing songs, right? I think, like I said, God reaches out to different ways. Maybe not originally we don't go there for the intended purposes, but like I said, God talks to us differently. Yeah, so that's why I believe no matter what, He is always behind us and around us, trying to reach out to us. Sometimes you just cannot see, so He gives signals, other signals.
Okay, let me turn to the first question, which comes from Benedict. He's asking about sharing data online of yourself in social media, putting a lot of data of yourself online. I suppose there's a question. I mean, at one level, there's a question of security, privacy, and there's also, perhaps if I can just add on to his question, there's also that question of making yourself greater than you are by projecting an image online, right? And then if and that creating allowing it to be a avenue for of growing your ego. So perhaps if you could give your take on what Benedict is asking.
That's a fantastic question. Actually, that is where the struggle happens, right? If you are a data person, you look at it, you say, "Wow, that's a lot of data." But you see, my business is not the business of targeting on products and things like that. I don't. It depends on what kind of business you are in, right? Am I trying to sell them products and things like that? Answer is no. I look at data differently because we are very specific in how we. The only thing we try and analyze is we are a product marketplace, right? Now becoming a mortgage marketplace. When you think of searching for property, you go to Property Guru. But right now we are striving to be such that if you look at mortgages, you will come to us. So where we are looking at is how do we give you what you're looking for? How do we help you in your journey? That's the specific question. So it's very, very targeted in that area. If you're looking at TikTok, IG, Facebook, you're talking about those like Bing Xing was talking about I think there's a need for some people to project themselves in two ways. Firstly, to flex what they have and to pretend for what they don't, right? My children are interestingly both very data private, so they don't share things online. They are not active on that. They DM maybe, but they are very protective of their own data. So yeah, it's true. Data, the more data you have, you can profile. But you see, the thing is, data can be also very manipulative. When you use that, how do you use the data to manipulate people? I think it's a big question online as well, right? So that's something that we have to do the right things. We want to make sure that whatever information we have allows us to target our communication and products so that we show our clients what they are looking for, what makes sense for them, right? And it's not to influence them, it's just to show them, okay, you're concerned about interest rates, for example. Then we share with you what our views are, what the data shows, and so on and so forth. It's more that way than trying to target people differently. I think sometimes some of the companies, the way they use the data could be questionable in terms of ethics. Yeah, I'm not an expert in those areas, but it's just my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. You coach your kids well. I hope that I can do the same with mine. Okay, moving on. Lawrence has asked about what is you were afraid of. You talked a few times about feeling afraid. But I think it's making us very curious. What were you afraid of? It seemed like at one point you didn't even know you were afraid, but then but you finally realized that you were. So that can you tell us more?
Yeah. So it's obvious to you guys that I'm not a small guy, right? I'm not a small guy. I'm quite big in size. I'm fairly vocal, fairly educated, and I can think for myself, right? But I lived with a grand auntie, right, who was uneducated, who was a widow, had been alone since very young because her husband had died. She was somebody who worked very, very hard, but depended on people to take care of her. So I had time to reflect upon this, what I'm sharing with you, and I realized one day that when maybe many years later that I was contemplating an issue, and I felt very afraid. I said, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And all of a sudden, a moment of clarity came. What is there to be afraid of? What is the worst case scenario? Then I realized that I had taken a lot of the attributes of fear from my grand auntie. My granny used to talk like somebody very much like a victim. She loved me a lot, but she was always afraid, and she was always concerned that that things would go wrong and things like that. And that was the spirit of fear that I took upon myself. And when I recognized that, actually, and also growing in faith, right, also liberated me that I can speak out courageously. Although in the beginning I told you how I handled speaking out was by being brash, right? By being very direct and rude and stuff like that, like in your face. I also realized that there's a silent strength in self-control, right? In how we temper the messages, learning from Brother Mello, how do we communicate with respect and all that, and yet being firm and unafraid. Because people cannot hurt you if you do it right? And even if things don't go right, you would have communicated the message. So that was the fear, and with that recognition also, that's how I grew in faith. To answer your question, Lawrence, when you become less afraid, or when you manage, I'm still dealing with it sometimes because it's almost a reaction, right? I stayed with my grandauntie until I was 31 when I got married, right? All my life, right? And she was somebody who, let's just say, used to repeat things a lot. She will repeat to me, hey, you must, have you done this? It becomes second nature, right? So every day I recognize it, and I coach myself through dealing it differently. It's a day I become stronger, and I'm able to move away from that. Yeah. So that is the part about. I hope I answered your question, Lawrence.
Thanks very much, Paul. Okay, moving on. Janice is asking about how one knows that you have found your vocation. So I think you shared how you spent many years in banking, but found that you actually didn't think that was the right career for you, and so you switched.
Yeah.
And perhaps now, although you didn't quite elaborate, perhaps now you find that you're much more in a space which you feel like you have some calling or your vocation. Maybe you could elaborate. How do you tell that actually where you're supposed to be?
So one thing that I do is I sense there's a meter inside of me that I have to calibrate and see, am I happy? I think that's something that that I ask myself all the time. Now, vocation, the thing is, I've had this vision for the longest time. After I left banking, I noticed one of the things, and even in banking, I noticed this, right? A lot of brokers in the market don't take good care of the clients. A lot of the clients get manipulated into getting products simply because it pays higher commissions, or other factors, And I wanted to build a platform where objectively clients could get information. Of course, we make some money out of it, but how to do so responsibly and all that. And in fact, I tried it on my own. Right? I found it a bit tough going because I was one-man show. Then I was a bit distracted with other things like coaching and all things. But yeah, along the way, like I said, probably Guru contacted me, and I was able to live out this dream of building a business, of building business which takes care of clients. Right? On top of the profit motive, I like to think that we are starting to take good care of clients, and it's a journey that we still have to learn, right? But yeah, I think I'm here where I am, but I'm open to moving, right? Like I say, like Queen Esther, we don't know how God will give us, right? You don't know, right? And that's something that I've been praying for, that sheds light for me, right? Things for me to do and all that. And the danger is this, right? I have my own desires, right? What I want to do, and I don't want to treat God like ATM. That is something that is a daily reminder that I'm doing, right? I don't want to treat God like an ATM. I'm not going to ask God to give me a new job with more money and all that, simply because I don't think that's the correct question to be asking. You know, I just ask for guidance and for Him to show His hand in a way that He's always shown in my life, and not be impatient about it. And that's something in my late mid-50s. I'm learning to lean on more. So that is where I'm coming from.
Yes, I think all of us can do with leaning on God more. Leo Vincent asked about CR, right? And Benedict has helpfully put the web link online. Yeah, it stands for the Conversion Experience Retreat, 5-day retreat run by the Archbishop. It's a fantastic retreat. I encourage everyone online to go check it out and join the retreat if you haven't done so already. Yeah. So moving on to Benedict's second question. I think this is a challenge that many people will face in their jobs, when you have underperforming staff. How do you manage them? They are not doing their work as well, but the organization needs people who can perform in order to sort of do well. So how do you deal with that in your company?
Okay, so I think if I'm reading correctly, because the first part you say they are great at their job, and then the next part they are not performing well. It sounds like so I'm struggling to understand that, but I just going to, can we get Benedict to explain that part? Basically, how do we performance manage, is it? Is that what you mean?
Attitude problem.
Oh,
okay.
The
guy, yeah, actually quite good, but attitude has some issue.
Okay, so his ability is there, but attitude problem. I think the first thing that one needs to do is to role model what is correct behavior. I think it's very important, because it's very hard to coach somebody to do the right thing if you yourself not doing the right thing. Like the colleague who told me, I'm going to say this only once. It could be a rude awakening if also you realize actually the person is modeling you. So I think first thing is to self-reflect and say, are we reflecting the correct behavior? The second thing is to have a proper conversation. I think that's very important. We cannot second guess that. We cannot go around that. I think the attitude part, there must be counseling, there must be coaching. And then a lot of times I feel that people's attitudes sometimes it's because of their lack of self-awareness, right? It's a blind spot in their character or whatever, and all that. Our job is to shed light. Now, I think your final point is, is there a need to let them go? I think sometimes yes, right? Sometimes yes, because it depends on the extent of the behavior. If the person is extremely toxic, extremely destructive, and somebody who doesn't share the same values, then sometimes it's a question of fit, right? They could fit somewhere else, just maybe not. Then sometimes it's very hard, right? You can't always fit a square peg into a round hole. Maybe the person will do somewhere else, and yeah, I think it's a difficult question, right? People always say, oh, you shouldn't let people do, but I always say that we want somebody who will be performing at their best in the right place. But ultimately, most of the time, it is all about coaching, at least, and about having tough conversations. The worst is this, if you are doing poorly and nobody tells you about it. Yeah, and they don't know a way out. They don't know any better. The trick as managers is to show them that there's a different way to experiment and to test. And it could be a question of education also. Training them more and things like that.
Okay, let me move on to Trillian's question. Another question on management, this time about how as management can bring Christian values at work. It's a question that comes up quite a bit because we all work in a secular world and in a in a country many religions. So how does one do this?
So I think that firstly, I don't believe in proselytizing. I mean, here nowadays we just live our own lives and do our better. One of the best colleagues I have and somebody I've worked with since 2004 with short breaks in between is a Muslim lady, right? And when I communicate with her, and sometimes there are challenges at work or at home or whatever, we pray for each other, right? I think that's very important. The other thing is this. I feel that, okay, so in terms of management style, right, I'm super direct. I'm very, very direct, and I ask, so I tend not to take over their jobs. So meaning I don't micromanage, I don't determine 1, 2, 3. These are things you must do. I generally give broad strokes and give them a timeline or sometimes ask them for a timeline about how they can deliver. And then when they have the planned solutions, right? Then we deep dive and ask questions. What else can we do? Have we thought about this? What about the aspects of your team? When you do things like that, will it impact the morale? How do we develop? Are we taking good care of our clients? Blah, blah, blah. So it's generally like this. But the feedback my team has given and people tell me is that I demand quite a lot. I'm fair. I'm fair and I give them space to grow. Right. So just yesterday I was interviewing somebody, and in a previous round, one of my team leads actually shared that, wow, it's damn stressful working with Paul. But I look forward to every day. So to me, that's the highest praise. Because we are in our roles, we need to do the best we can for the organization. That's our responsibility. But if you are so challenged without being your values being compromised or your self-respect being taken away, I generally don't shout or scold people. If I'm upset, I try not to talk. But when I do say and do talk, it's usually in soft tones and very direct. Yeah,
that's good advice. When you're upset, don't say too much and don't send emails.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Hey, thanks very much. So it's really about evangelizing through your action by living your values at work, right? Your Christian values at work. Yeah, thanks very much. Okay, Benedict has asked another question.
Okay.
Yeah, so about how you grew in your faith despite not being in having a Catholic childhood. Or how do you bring up your own children? Sorry.
So how we bring out our children is to have them model, go with us when we go to church, we pray and stuff like that, right? I would be candid to say that when they reach when they reach a certain age, right, especially their late teens or early 20s, right, usually there's a crisis of faith. I've seen that happening a lot, where children around that age would ask, is there a God? Or, same questions that I've been grappling with all my life, right? There was a period of time I didn't go to church for something like 5 years in between, right? Where I struggled to find God in my life, my kids are going through that. They're asking the question like, how is God there? How do I experience God? They still go to church with us at times. I mean, my daughter is overseas, as you've heard. My son is still in Singapore, but yeah, there are times where want space to explore their own faith. And the danger is this, the danger is that when we are very, very involved in church as we were when they were very young, right? You get them to go for all the cell group meetings, children's things. They feel like there's no way for them, there was no opportunity for them to develop their own legs in their faith. And so that's an ongoing thing. We have conversations with our children where we expose them to opportunity to go in faith, find retreats for them or go and stuff like that. Because I told you it's in combination with what the that's my personal opinion, Benedict. In the current scheme of things, people Google for answers, right? Having faith in a lot of times becomes challenging because it's not Googleable. This relationship we got, right? Information you can Google, but a relationship you cannot. So that's the struggle we continue to have. I mean, we try and grow our children along the way, but yeah, I think that is the path that we do. I think for me, again, like I said, I didn't have a Catholic upbringing and things like that, except for the school, right? Even for me to find my faith allows me to go around in circles before I come to a certain point. Even so, it's sometimes difficult to do that. Yeah. Oh, Leo has got I know Leo from Blessed Sacrament for many years. I haven't seen him in years, but good to see your name here, Leo. This daily prayer schedule, right? Particular prayers I'm more inclined to use. That's something I learned about myself, right? I pray in a different way. So for me, I told you when I close my eyes and I pray, right? In the past, I heard silence, right? But how I experience God is in how I feel in my heart and all that, in my feelings and my senses. I learned that during CR, and not really related to the CR itself, but that was a realization that God spoke to me very differently, right? You know, when we pray, when I look at people pray, right, when they close their eyes and all that, I realize subsequently it's not the form that I'm looking for. I want to have the experience of God. And to me, the experience of God is when I can reduce a few times throughout the day, no regular fixed schedule, but I will stop for 5-10 minutes and I stop and I breathe in and I experience God. And sometimes I talk in my head, I pray. No set prayers and things. Because for me, while I do set prayers in praying the rosary and things like that, how I really feel connected to God is in my heart, you know, the breathing and how I experience it. So that is how I experience God. It is not for everyone, but ever since I understood that and prayed that, my relationship with God has deepened a lot. You know, I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, that is my experience lah.
It works for you means it works, man, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, Claudia is asking about feeling burnt out. And that have you ever felt not feeling good enough, and have to keep trying harder? And so, what advice would you give to someone experiencing this?
First thing you need to do is rest, and so that's the thing that I'm very sensitive to. In the past, I used to work like I still do. If the feeling gets me, I can work very long hours, and I felt in the past that sometimes the way to work yourself out of a rut is to continue working. If you are fatigued, heck, you know, the strong guys don't get tired. But this is very toxic because especially during COVID, you see the kind of environment where people come on, just suck it up and go through it. Right? To me, it's the most dangerous. So for me, generally, if I don't feel burnt out because I calibrate myself. If I feel tired, I take a break. That's why since January, I've been going on back to the office every day if I can. Um, when I work, I am able to say, push myself away and say, I need a break. And I learned this funnily enough during the COVID period because when circuit breaker came, it came 2 weeks after we launched the business. So I essentially had to build a business from home. And I found myself, I normally wake up about 4 a.m. So I used to work from 4 a.m. to about 11, 12 o'clock. And because, there was nothing else to do at home, right? So that was what I was doing. I felt very, very productive. But after about an extended period of time, I no longer felt the benefits. Then I went to reflect and decided that the problem was that I was spending too long trying to slog through problems. Ironically, if you take a break, you do better. You heard about the sharpening the saw principle, right? About two men went to chop tree. One guy disappears 1 hour a day, but he ends up chopping more trees. I believe in that. Yeah. So I try and sleep early, 8, 9 o'clock if I can. I wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. But rest is key. I wish I learned that a lot more, when I was younger. But better late than never, lah. To me, that was very important.
Okay. Just in case you guys don't know what that X-Man did when he went off for 1 hour, is to sharpen the saw so that he can cut faster.
Yeah, or cut more also lah.
Yeah. Okay, Benedict has another question.
Benedict, you have amazing questions, Benedict.
About faith and how your faith has trying to read the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you practice your faith during the time of COVID.
I must say it evolves. It evolves. So the first let me show you the stages I went through. Okay. The first one was when I started going to church, right? Stopped going to church, and I said, wow, jialat. Okay, but the online masters were very, very good. So I was attending the online masters, the 1 hour ones. Then after a while, then I realized, wow, not so engaged, right? Not so engaged. Then I started to looking for more engaging content. But the last stage of it was where I felt online masters and all these online Zoom things just didn't work for me anymore. I needed to be back in church. And that was when around the time where things started opening up, we can book more masters and all that. So I was very glad for that. In terms of prayer and all that, I told you that I don't have set periods and I don't do half an hour prayers, right? Unless it's an organized prayer like rosary or what. I normally take breaks in between where I spend 5-10 minutes just being in the presence and being aware of God, right? And with that, I experience God. It's like relighting the fire every time, just short. For me, it's not so much the act of praying, but the engagement in the relationship, right? It's like I call my wife and say, hey, darling, how are you doing, right? During the day. And the feeling gets intensified. Not just a feeling, but the relationship gets built on and things like that. So to me, that is how I see my faith. It took me a very long time to come here, like I said, because I always believed in the past, observing other people, that prayer meant kneeling down, being able to close your eyes and do what they do the same. But look, some people do other things better than others. So for me, my connection with God is gotten through this. And I must say also, there was a fear that I was doing things wrong, right? So to me, that was important to get past this fear or connection. When I know that this builds the relationship with God, I know that it's right.
Okay. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're also back at church, attending physical mass.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone to go back to physical mass if you have not. I think Archbishop has said he's going to cease his online broadcast. I can't remember whether or not it's already. I'm not sure whether or not it's already happened. That he's already ceased it, but he's really trying to get everyone to go back. And actually, I've not had any problems getting a spot after the SMM measures relax. There's so much more capacity these days.
Yeah,
so
much.
let's all go back. Okay, maybe let me ask one final question before we close, which pertains again to your story. At one point, you shared how you left your banking job because you didn't feel that it gelled well with your values. But you left without a job, and you sort of became self-employed, and in other words, had much more uncertainty in your income.
Yeah.
But that was still at the time when you had kids who were not yet, it doesn't sound like they were close to working yet, right? Your daughter was the older one, had not
14, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you bring yourself to take that step? I think that's always very challenging for people to do. The very tough decision to make.
Yeah, actually, the day I resigned, right, I got a lot of messages from friends. Essentially, the message was, "Are you mad? Are you crazy?" I will tell you this: I would not have done it if my wife had said no. So she was working in a bank then. Her income is okay. And I had a long chat with her. I shared with her my experience. She knew what I was going through, and the experiences I was having at work and all those things. Then she encouraged me because end of the day, right? If your spouse doesn't support you in that respect, it's a recipe for disaster. So I only did it because she gave me her support. She said, in fact, I told her, I said, let me wait a while first. And then she said, look, if you want to go, just do it. Right. And then she also tahan my nonsense. For the next few years, I was doing funny things, right? I was building websites, give myself funny things to do. For a few years, I had to explain very hard. Every time I meet my in-laws, right? They'll look at me and say, Paul, what are you doing again? So I have to explain this is what I'm doing. And I did a lot of funny things, all with the support of my wife. So to me, that was the biggest thing. Because like I said, had she not supported me, I would not have left the job. Yeah, I think that one I cannot take credit. It's all to my wife.
Thanks, Paul. And I think it also speaks a lot about your faith that the Lord will provide. That you managed to step away from steady income, and that somehow the Lord will help you through.
Yeah, it's one thing, but I also learned a lot. I actually went through a couple of, I'll share. I also learned a lot about myself because men traditionally, you always look at yourself as the breadwinner, right? And what happens if you stop having the ability where your spouse becomes the one that brings the money back consistently, right? Yeah, I went through a lot of highs and lows during that period of time, and it actually taught me a lot also about my belief system and so many things, about what does it mean to have faith and things like that. It was very difficult also, not all good. I mean, it sounds sexy, everyone wants to be self-employed and things like that, but it's not an easy journey. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to bring the Q&A to a close. Thank you so much once again, Paul, for sharing that very candid sharing. I think your story has reminded us all how we have to probably stay grounded and humble. No matter how our accomplishments and success, to stay humble, and to be detached from the things that we have around us, that God has blessed us with. And that we should keep our faith in the Lord, that He will always provide what we really need. Okay, thank you so much. And maybe at this point, I'll pass the time to Errol, who has a few announcements.
As you know, CBN is not funded, as I said earlier, and we depend on donations and love offerings and running our own fundraisers to support our programs and services such as this. Most of our programs are run free of cost. So do support us with a love offering if you can. Do your bank transfers, or you can open your banking app and do a scan to pay or issue us checks. So with that, I hand over to Paul to do the closing prayer. Paul.
So we sign ourselves in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Father God, we praise you and thank you for this period of fellowship over the chats we just had. Father, we pray that as we continue to grow in our faith, help us, Lord, to know that this is not a perfect journey in our normal understanding, but instead that our goal is to always head towards you, Lord, that we have faith and trust that you will continue to guide us and be with us no matter the circumstances that we go through, no matter the challenges that we face, no matter what. Help us, Lord, to always sense and feel and know that you are there for us no matter what. We ask that as we break today, that we continue to walk with us and journey with us. Also want to lift to you Lawrence, who will be doing the next talk, that you may guide him and protect him and help him say the words that will glorify you. And we ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ. In Jesus' name we ask and pray. Amen.
Amen. Dear friends of CBN, thank you for tuning into Catholic Business Network's My Journey series. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button. And if you are new to our channel, do follow us on all our social media platforms and click on the subscribe button and the bell icon to get a notification whenever we post a new video. Thank you and God bless.